So welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening meditation class, especially to those who are new today. In a moment we'll have a meditation which will be probably about half an hour long, but before I do that I'll explain a little bit about the basics of meditation, just for those of you who are unfamiliar. There's so much going on in our lives these days that sometimes we feel quite guilty if we are not taken up with something or other to dominate our attention the whole of the time. There's a lack of time for us to let our attention have downtime, to the point that sometimes we feel that our awareness is hijacked the whole of the time by things demanding our attention from around us. And one way of looking at this is it's natural to be attentive to the things around us, and any person who has a lot of responsibilities has a lot of things which they need to be attentive about at any one time. But at the same time, if we have a continuous overstimulation of our awareness the whole of the time, then there can come a time when it's just too much for us. And we need a place or a technique to somehow to recharge the batteries of the mind so that we can go back to all our important activities with a fresh perspective or a fresh recharge of energy. And meditation has been proposed as a way to help our mind have a place to go and a place under a technique by which to re-engage and recenter and gain some sort of equilibrium. And the thing which is behind most meditation techniques is finding a way to get our awareness or our mind, which is what I'll call it for short, to come from all those things in the outside world back to a place within ourselves, within the actual space of the body. And in this respect, there is a special place inside the body where, if the awareness can re-engage with that place inside, you see a little spot flashing there somewhere around the solar plexus, the longer we can keep our awareness in that particular place, then the more chance it has to let go of some of the thoughts that are dominating the mind, and also to get back in balance with our bodily awareness as well. Apart from giving us some time away from all those things in the outside world that are competing for our attention, it also helps us to go deeper into a sense of who we are, what is meaningful for us in life, and that sort of thing. So that instead of just being someone who serves everyone else without thinking about themselves, we can also have a deeper reason for all those good things that we do as well. So how exactly we get back to that place within ourselves? Well, there are many different meditation techniques to help us to do that. One which you may have heard about before now is working with the breath as a way to bring the mind back within the space of the body. And it's true that the breath goes in and out like a pillar of air between our lungs and our nostrils. And if we can keep our awareness on the breath, then at the very least our awareness will be within the space of the body for as long as it is on the breath. Unfortunately for the breath, it's always moving. So it's like trying to work with a moving target. And although with some breathing techniques they focus on a particular part of the breath rather than following the breath, which is one way to get it to be a little bit more still, the way we tend to work with meditation in this particular center is even simpler, which is to create some sort of stationary picture in the mind as a place to focus our attention. And a picture which you might like to try now as a way to test out whether this might work for you is to maybe think of a picture of the sun shining. As if the sun's shining in the sky, You can probably imagine that or picture that in your mind even now that it's dark, even now there's no windows to look out of, but you can still conjure up a picture of the sun shining in your mind. What we would do to make that into a meditation would be to relocate the picture of the sun down to that place inside ourselves, a little picture spot you can see flashing on the screen there, down at our solar plexus. And for as long as our mind is with the picture of the sun, then it would be engaged with that point inside of ourself. It would be centered, it would be able to become calmer. If our mind wandered away from the picture of the sun, then we just bring it back again. And it may be that other pictures rather than the sun suit you better. You might like to think of a moon, a star, a diamond, a crystal ball like the one behind me, or even something more meaningful from your own life. Some people work better with a feeling than with a picture, and it may be that you feel the picture rather than see it. And that is also just as effective a way to meditate as using a picture. And in fact, some people find it preferable because it's hard to stare at a feeling. But some people feel tempted to try really hard to see a picture, which is not really what we're aiming for with the meditation. Yes? So that's the basis of the meditation which we will do today. Generally, for any meditation, there is a little bit of a preliminary, setting the scene for the meditation, which in this particular case, generally the first 5 minutes of any meditation, we try to get ourselves as comfortable as we can physically. Some people like to sit on the floor, cross-legged, that's fine. If you're sitting on a chair, then again, you try to sit up fairly straight so that you can breathe easily, so that you don't get sleepy, and so that you can find the center of your body easily. The way we put our hands when we're meditating is with the right hand on top of the left hand and the index finger of the right hand up against the thumb of the left hand. And that gives us quite an open and upright posture. If we get sleepy, then normally our finger slips, and that gives us a little bit of an advance warning. So, finger against thumb. Yeah. After the first 5 minutes of relaxing our body, hopefully to the point that we can forget about it, we move on to relax the feeling inside us, our state of mind, putting aside any extraneous thoughts as much as possible, trying to put ourselves in a positive state of mind. And only then do we do this exercise with picturing something inside us or conjuring up a feeling inside us at the center of our body as a place for the mind to rest. Some people have a problem with thoughts, and if the thoughts are at quite a low level, then often you can get away with simply ignoring the thoughts. If you leave them alone long enough, then they will gradually settle down by themselves, like sediment settling out in a barrel of water. But for some people, the number of thoughts is much more than they can ignore. Some people have a particular problem with thoughts, often the same sort of people who have problems with insomnia or anxiety attacks or panic, that sort of thing. Generally, it's a particularly large amount of thoughts which you have. And if that's the case, then when you meditate, you may find that ignoring the thoughts is not cutting it for you. You may add a more drastic way of getting rid of the thoughts, which is to use a mantra, in which case you might want to make use of the mantra I've suggested on the screen there, the words Samma Arahang. Not out loud, but just hearing those words going through your mind will cut through the random thoughts a little bit more quickly than if you just leave them alone. And you could substitute in another mantra if you're not happy with that one, but the meaning of that particular one is written out there for you to see. So, are you feeling comfortable now? Do you reckon meditation is within your reach? In which case, I'll lead you through meditation for about half an hour, and after that, then we'll come to our wisdom talk for this evening. So if you'd like to start by finding a comfortable position for yourself in meditation, either sitting cross-legged on your meditation mat or sitting with your back fairly straight on a chair. And we close our eyes very gently, letting our eyelids droop almost drowsily, so that our upper and lower eyelashes touch barely together. There's no need to squeeze our eyes closed any tighter than that. No part of our body should be under any tension or stress. We allow the muscles of our body to become relaxed and soft, starting with the muscles around our face, then moving down to our neck, relaxing all the muscles there, relaxing our shoulders, both arms, both hands, all the way down to our fingertips, so they all feel as if they're free of any tension. From there we relax our chest. We allow our back to become relaxed. The muscles of our belly, both legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes. Until we're left with a sense of lightness on the inside. A sense of lightness that extends to our whole body. And we remain with this relaxing sensation throughout our body for a few moments together. In a similar way, we turn our attention to relaxing our state of mind, allowing our mind to become free of any worries or concerns. Allowing our mind to become more relaxed, more neutral, more comfortable and more independent from whatever is happening in the outside world. Our attention only gets caught up in the outside world because we forget to turn our attention inward. To put our mind in contact with that inner sense of peace. Really, the sense of peace is always there, but because we forget about it, then our mind wanders off onto other things. But to regain that inner sense of peace is as simple as bringing the mind back from wandering outside in the world, to focus instead on the inside of our body. And in this respect, we can imagine that inside our body is just an empty structure made of a thin outline, and inside no bone, no muscle, no organs, as if nothing remains inside our body but an empty space. And for a moment we slowly internalize the sense of awareness that we know as our mind, and allow it to stay still, softly and gently within this empty space of our body. The way we shift our attention to the place inside us should be slow and soft. There's no need to rush at all. We allow the feeling to become soft and still, somewhere in the general area of our abdomen. But in fact, if you feel more comfortable elsewhere within the body, then you can adopt that place instead. But for now, for the time being, we allow the awareness to remain at that place of comfort. With the softness of a tiny feather floating down from the sky, and finally touching upon a still water surface, without even creating a ripple. For now we maintain this soft awareness of the mind comfortably inside the body as continuously as we can, for as long as we can. Some of us may be content simply to remain with this inner feeling, in which case we can continue in this vein for as long as we can. For others whose mind is a little bit more antsy, a little bit quicker to be interrupted or distracted by things around us, then we might keep the mind in place by giving it an anchor, a visualized picture of something that we're familiar with, like the sun shining, a full moon, or even a shining star. Whatever we feel the most comfortable with. But we allow that image to stay in the mind naturally, so that nothing else will have the chance to interrupt. And we remain with that inner image comfortably and without worrying about the passing time. If the way we are visualizing leads to discomfort, then we can begin again at any time. Maybe applying the mind even more softly than the last time. And if ever distractions arise, then we can just recommence with our visualization, repeating the visualization again and again in a leisurely manner at the center of our body, for as long as it takes for the mind to settle at a place of comfort inside of us. As for thoughts in the mind, sometimes if we ignore them, they will go away by themselves, like sediment settling out of a barrel of sandy water. if simply ignoring the thoughts is not effective enough, then we might make use of that traditional mantra, hearing the sound quietly in the mind of the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, where the word Samma means in the proper way, and the word Arahang refers to a state of having no more mental impurities, no more of that negativity that normally affects our mind in its everyday life. So the words Samma Arahang mean the proper way to purify the mind, to eventually bring forth a state of absolute purity, a state that we all long for. So we continue to repeat the mantra Samma Arahang, continuously feeling the voice vibrating and expanding outwards from the center of the body. Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, so that the mind can settle on the inner object while absorbing the sound of the mantra as a way to dissipate any thoughts from the mind. And if we're able to practice this every single day, we may be surprised that even as a beginner, someone like us can keep the mind still for ever lengthening moments by practicing a little every day. The centering of the mind will become as natural to us as breathing, because breathing is something we can do even without thinking about it. We'll be able to free the mind from any negativity much more easily, allowing the mind to become pure and crystal clear. And the purer the mind becomes, the easier it will be for it to connect with that source of pure energy inside, which will help to safeguard us from any of the harmful elements, illnesses, sicknesses around us. As if all of our thought, speech and action seems to come from a place of integrity within us. It is something that the world is in particular need of at the present time. So being part of the solution, the positive thinking, the positive emotions in the world will be an important part in protecting the world around us. Being part of that stream of pure energy that radiates outwards across the entire planet, extending protection and harmony in every place. So we continue to maintain the source of our pure energy, gradually multiplying and magnifying it at the center by means of our inner mantra, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again as we sit for meditation with our inner object and the mantra helping one another hand in hand for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Continue to keep our mind on track at the center of our body the whole of the time. We find our attention slipping away onto anything else. Each time we realize, we gently bring our awareness back again to the center of the body as before. If the inner object disappears, we can think of a new one. But if it changes, we just follow it in its new form. And our practice may change to be one of observation, where we simply follow the way the inner experience transforms and evolves as time goes on, watching without interfering, allowing the inner experience to become fluid, ever-changing, but with the byproduct for our mind that the mind becomes increasingly calm, serene, increasingly in contact with the deeper faculties of our mind that lie beyond the superficial thoughts. So we continue to cultivate our attention in this way, always using nothing more than a feather-light touch to keep the mind in place for a few more moments in silence. mind continues to gather up that sense of pure energy inside of itself. We can imagine that the inner energy radiates out from that central point in all directions. We can gently visualize the pure energy taking the form of a crystal sphere, which seems to grow larger to encapsulate the whole of our body, reaching out further to our whole family, our neighborhood, eventually outwards to everyone in the world, everyone without exception. As we emanate a positive intention with that extension of our pure energy full of love and compassion towards all without exception. For those who are suffering, we make the wish that they be free from sadness and pain. For those who are already enjoying some degree of happiness, we make the wish that they become happier still. We might imagine that we emanate a positive intention to everyone in the country, neighboring countries, the entire continent, all the continents of the world, covering the entire globe and beyond, with the wish that everyone everywhere be well and happy, living in peace, with the thought that even in the darkest of nights, the starlight can still shine through. Even troubled times can have a silver lining. Even times of crisis can bring forth resilience and growth. Even when things around us have gone awry, yet our mind can re-engage with happiness through the practice of meditation. So we make the wish that all human lives be filled with empathy towards one another, free from stress or anxiety, free from worry or irritation, free from sickness or danger. As we share this peaceful energy for the benefit of our ancestors, family members, friends, whether they are still with us or whether they have already passed. Feeling that all may be cleansed with hope and joy, while being sheltered against sadness, sickness, sorrow, or danger. May all sentient beings be free from distress, and may a growing stream of pure energy dispel any harmful elements from the environment. As if this whole planet of ours could become a bright sphere, as bright as the inner sphere we have created inside us, so that only things of purity and quality, integrity, come to the fore in the world around us. And out of all the transformations that we have come through in the last few years of our lives, May the whole of the world emerge into a better place, a place of freedom without harm or aggression. With this pure energy of ours protecting the world from all forms of negativity. As we sit and make wishes for ourselves or others for the last few moments of our meditation together.พุทธาปรปตาปัจเจกานัญชยบาลัง Arahantananchate jena arakambantami sampaso Sapaputanupavena Sapatammanupavena Sapasankhanupavena Satha Soti Bhavanto Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So far, so good for everyone. New folks, okay with the meditation? Very good. Generally, people are too shy to comment too much about meditation in front of everyone else, but I'm here anyway if you want to ask anything outside of the class, if you have any questions or comments or queries as a result of the practice today. But at this time, I think we will move gently on to the second part of the topic which I started out on last Thursday, which is to do with the benefits in our life of having something that we are particularly skilled at doing in a practical way. What I've called mastering your craft. And in isolation, it may not make much sense about what's the monk doing, advocating people to get transferable skills or something. But I'll explain a little bit of the context for this, which is that this is number 8 in a sort of staircase leading from values and character strengths of various sorts, from very simple ones, very basic ones, very obvious ones, to rather more esoteric ones. In the beginning, there are simple things like choosing a good set of friends, or being in a conducive environment or an encouraging environment where everyone is cheering you on to do positive things in your life rather than destructive things. And at this point in the sequence, what we are really looking at is how we can stand on our own 2 feet, especially financially, without being a burden on others, through the knowledge we have, being able to put that knowledge to some good use, but also in a way that doesn't ride on the backs of others in a way that we are pushing them down so that we can get higher in life. The one that comes after this is more to do with family life and so on, so you can see where the sequence is leading, from very basic ones to more generally more altruistic ones. But the one before this, I was talking about the value of getting an education for yourself, basically. And what I'm saying today is that education alone is not the whole story. You need to be able to then do something with the knowledge that you have. And last Thursday, I talked about this theory of the 10,000 hours, that if you're going to get world-class expertise in anything, then generally you have to do a lot of it, rehearse it a lot, and to really master it to a point that you excel. 10,000 hours is probably a little bit of a simplistic way of thinking about all of this, but today what I'm going to do is to offer you a little bit more advice, just in case you have something which you reckon in your life that you're particularly good at. How can you really take that to the level where it is something you would consider craftsmanship? And the other thing which I will say is that there's a sort of assumption behind all of this that you don't need to be good at many different things, But even if there's just one simple thing that you are exceedingly good at, then that can be the thing that makes or breaks your pathway to success in life. And really, sometimes it can be some quite extraordinarily dull things which people do very well. That could be your saving grace. So let's look today to see how that thing which we think that maybe we have a chance of being really excellent at can be something that we can really practice to a point where we get to expertise in it. So the first thing is to really find something that you believe in. So there's 5 qualities here for like preconditions for really getting excellent at something. Why believing in something is important is because sometimes it doesn't align with what on paper you look as if you're good at. You might get good exam results in something that you find really boring, or something that your heart isn't in. And if that's the case, then generally if you're going to take it to the next level, if you don't actually enjoy doing it, then you won't be able to really have the continuity and the resilience which it takes to overcome all the ups and downs which you're going to encounter along the way to making that into something that you're really good at. So it's usually better to go for something that you do believe in. Some people want to become a doctor because their parents think it's a great idea, and maybe they can do it. At a pinch they could probably get through medical school, but their heart isn't in it. Maybe they'd be better off doing something which they really do believe in, because that's where they could really put in the extra mile to do what's necessary to really make a difference in the world. The second thing might be that you need to be in strong health to have the energy to put into mastering a subject. If you're not in strong health, or if you are the sort of person who's a little bit of a hypochondriac, then you might need to set your sights a little bit lower. You probably won't be the sort of Olympic champion in whatever you're doing. Maybe you settle for the county champion or something instead. Yeah. So if you do want to go the full way, then you need to respect your health in order to really, so that doesn't become the reason why you fail in whatever you've set out to do. Some people think that you have to have the appearance of being quite self-important, or have a lot of bluster about whatever you're doing in order to really impress people with what you're doing. Actually, the wisdom of the 38 blessings would say that, in fact, you have to be a very humble person in order to really learn everything there is to know about a subject. And the reason for that is that mostly you're not learning it all by yourself. You have to learn those skills from other people who know more about it than you. And if you don't accept that you still have some way to go yet, then there's no way that you can really absorb all that knowledge. There's a little metaphor which is often used in the Buddhist context about water always flowing to the lowest level, which is to say that if you have water in a container, then the receptacle for the water needs to be lower down for the water to pour into it. You can't pour water upwards. Yeah? Unless you're on the moon or something. Yeah. I think on the moon it still goes down, right? Okay. So you need to put yourself a little bit lower down in order for the knowledge to flow towards you. That's the idea of having that sense of humility in order to master a trade, especially if you become an apprentice to somebody. If you pretend that you know it all, or if you boast a lot about the small things which you manage to achieve, then most people won't have enough sympathy for you to actually teach you anything extra. They'll leave you to your faults. Fourth thing, you need to be fairly diligent. If you're lazy, then knowledge won't seek you out very easily. And whatever you're doing, you need to cultivate wisdom alongside what you're doing in order to give you the self-knowledge and the ability to reflect on your new skills in a way that you really master them as your craft. So, mastering your craft, it said that you need to be observant. You reckon you are an observant person? Keep an eye on things? Well, the most important thing to keep an eye on if you're learning a new skill is to observe yourself. So just keeping an eye on everything, nothing much in particular, it's not what I mean by observant, but you need to have a lot of self-knowledge and the way that you interact with whatever skill that you're learning. If you start close to home with observing the things that affect you, even simple things like your eating habits, your sleeping habits, you notice the ups and downs in your health, the things that interrupt you working at your full potential, then that is a very good place to start in being observant. If you notice, for example, how much you can eat without becoming sleepy. You notice that sort of thing? Not much. Just keep eating until no more fits in. Or if you eat too little, lose some weight, then maybe you get a little bit fractious. So that isn't quite the right way of going about it either. Or you're noticing your own sleeping habits. Does it make a difference if you have slightly less hours of sleep per night? Or does it matter to you whether you get a couple of hours of sleep before midnight, or is it just the same having that sleep after midnight? If you notice these sorts of things about yourself, then you notice where the levels of peak performance really lie. You can then move your sense of observation a little bit further outwards from yourself to the things you use. Notice how you affect them or they affect you. The clothes you wear, not so much from the point of view of being fashionable or whatever, but in terms of the utilitarian aspects of what you use. Notice how the way you speak to people might affect how they treat you, instead of just wondering why no one likes you. And then from there you can move it gradually outwards as your observation skills get better to the wider environment. Yeah. Next thing is that you need to train yourself to do everything better than best. Not just enough to get a pass mark, but to really excel at what you're doing. Even simple things like handwriting, like, I don't know if people still do that anymore. Not much. Usually with one finger or whatever. Some people's handwriting is so bad that actually no one can read it anyway. And that can, just a little bit of extra time spent making your handwriting legible to people can actually allow what you've written to be decipherable to the person who gets whatever you've written. So if you're writing down important commands to someone else and they can't read what you've written or they get it wrong, then that would definitely be a problem for your work. So if you, even though it may take a little bit of extra care in order to write things down clearly, that would definitely be a big contribution to success in whatever you're doing. if you take care even in things which on the face of it don't seem that important, then it cultivates something in you which will definitely be of use to you later, which is the ability to appreciate quality in whatever you do. Even if it's quality in something that is not particularly spectacular, but it's quality nonetheless. And it allows you to take that into whatever you do in life in a way that if you ignore it, then you just become a person who does everything in the shortest possible way. What I'm not advocating is being a sort of an OCD sort of person where you're sort of completely caught up in, getting everything straight and aligned and neat little rows or whatever, but in the things that certainly matter. Because for so many of the things we're talking about to do with craftsmanship, the devil is in the detail. So you have to be a detailed person to notice where that lies. If you can already do something okay, then you should be constantly looking at even better ways to do the same thing, or more efficient ways to do the same thing. If you're still doing the same thing after 15 years in the same old way, then someone would say that you're really treading water in life. Fifth thing is apprentice yourself to someone who is already a craftsman in whatever you want to learn. And often people who are very skilled in things don't like to talk about it too much, and usually they can't be bothered with apprentices either, because they already have confidence in what they're doing. Maybe only when they get to the time in life when they're afraid that the skills are going to die with them do they get a little bit more motivation to actually share what they know with others. But if you have that sense of humility, then apprenticing yourself to people who know the ins and outs of a particular skill in a way that goes beyond what's in any textbook, that would certainly be something that would help you. Last time I mentioned 10,000 hours, but 10,000 hours alongside someone who is already skilled in what you want to learn, that would really make that 10,000 hours count. Being skilled in something like surgery is pretty important. A millimeter or two to the shy of what you need can make a big difference in that particular trade. Oops. Yeah, you don't want any oopses in the operating theatre. On the subject of apprenticeship, in Johns Hopkins University, they have a residency program which has the slogan, see one, do one, teach one, which applies to surgery. So they don't start with a scalpel in their hand, but they start by watching a person doing an operation. And fortunately, these days you can see all the gruesome details on the big screen first, before you actually get down to finding out whether you have a shaky hand or not. But that isn't the end of the story. In Johns Hopkins University, you may have heard they have an accelerated learning program. Normally bachelor's degrees take like 3 years or whatever, but there it takes 2 years because they have just a better way of learning, and I think they select their candidates pretty closely as well. But the people who graduate from this program have to actually be able to teach the next person how to do what they're doing. So they aren't just people who can do the skill, surgery in this case, but they're people who can explain how to do the skill to people who come after them who might be like a little bit more clueless in ways that are different from ways they've encountered. So that is a particularly, they're particularly motivated by this ability to apprentice and also to teach apprentices, which is why they're so famous for what they do. But it could be for more than just surgery, if you're able to pass on that knowledge to other people. Lastly, it said that for any skill, if you're also a meditator, it's helpful for those observation skills. And also because meditation in itself is one of the ultimate skills, because you're dealing with a part of yourself which is particularly hard to master, to tame, and which is particularly uncooperative if you don't get it where it needs to be. Your monkey mind, in other words. To make anything we know a blessing, then an important aspect is knowing any loopholes in the knowledge, which might be the gray areas between something changing the world for the better or creating problems in the world. And within Buddhism, there are some traits which are particularly problematic, which generally are advised to avoid, if at all possible. Things like selling, selling weapons. Yeah, good money in that, but yes, who are all your customers? Selling liquor, selling the slave trade, selling animals to the slaughterhouse, and selling poisons. So really there's not much in terms of redeeming qualities for any of those 5. So most people, if they manage to avoid any of those particular trades, they can breathe a big sigh of relief. But in fact, it's not quite that simple, because nearly every trade you have has got little things in it where you have to be careful. If you're a surgeon, great, right? Unless you're a lousy surgeon who likes to leave their scissors in people's internal cavities when they're sewing them up, and that sort of thing. Yeah, and no one wants a surgeon like that. Or sometimes you might think owning a shop might be a good thing, but some people rip off their customers. Some customers rip off the people in the shops, going back for refunds when they shouldn't be getting them, and that sort of thing. So everything has grey areas. Being a pop singer, good, right? Everyone wants to be a pop singer. But then you find out that unless you are a pop singer who doesn't wear many clothes, then no one's really that interested in you. So exactly how many clothes can you get away with? Maybe you have to wear less and less clothes as your career goes on in order to keep people's interest in you. And then where do you draw the line? So whatever occupation you have, there's lines somewhere which you need to be aware of. I will say being a teacher is pretty much one of the most free of difficulties because it's a very giving profession. But even some teachers behave like mercenaries sometimes, where it's like, I'm only going to stay there for as long as they pay me to be there. Never mind the children, they're just in the way. So yes, everything has these lines which you need to be aware of if you're really going to be skillful in what you do. So being aware of what I've called ethical blind spots is part of the terrain of being skilled in what you do. Yeah. Anyway, I have a funny story to finish off with, and it's about one of the possibly most unexpected skills which you might ever think would become useful for a person. And it is a skill to do with goat dung. You know goats? You know dung? Yes. Well, this is to do with what you can do with goat dung in order to make it mastery. And the story is about, this is a traditional Thai picture of it. You can see the guy in question there holding a stick. He's holding a stick because he suffers from polio. And what he's doing is this. And he is pinging things very accurately, which is his superpower or his skill. So this little boy started out and he had a lot of difficulties in his life. His legs were so weak he couldn't walk anywhere unaided, and he had to stay wherever his friends put him. If he was in a particular place, he couldn't get up to move anywhere else without them taking him. But although his body was not very strong, his intelligence was as smart as a whip, and he didn't look down on any subject. And when he had free time, seeing as his friends had deposited him in a sandpit, then he started practicing pinging pieces of sand until he could do it so accurately that he would take commissions from the other kids playing in the sandpit to shoot holes in the leaves of the tree above where they're playing in the sandpit. So if they commissioned, like, let's say, an elephant, then he would shoot the leaves on the tree into the shape of an elephant. If they wanted a squirrel, then he'd shoot them into the shape of a squirrel. And that way he could actually earn quite a lot of stacks and general goodies from all the other children who were commissioning his work. And one day, as they were all playing the sandpit, who should ride by but the king on his horse? And when they all saw the king coming, then all the other children ran away. And they forgot to take the little boy with him. So when the king arrived at the sandpit, the only person there left to receive him was this poor boy who couldn't run anywhere else. So the king came to rest under the shade of the tree, and when he looked up, he was very surprised to see that this particular tree had rather unusual leaves on it, because the leaves were in the shapes of every animal, every shape imaginable. So the king put two and two together, and he realized that the little boy standing in front of him must have a rather exceptional skill set. And the king happened to have something on his mind, rather like council chambers everywhere. There was a particular councillor who used to come to every meeting, and he would interrupt and dominate the discussion persistently and wasted the time of everyone else in the meeting, to the point that hardly anything got done in that kingdom as a result of all these meetings that got blocked up with this guy just going on and on. So the king asked the little boy, "It's you, isn't it, who've managed to shoot all these holes in the leaves so accurately?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "If someone were to give you goat dung to shoot like that instead of sand, could you do it as accurately?" And the little boy said, "Piece of cake." So he said, "I think I have a job for you." So onto the king's horse the little boy went, and he was taken to the royal palace, set up in relative luxury, and he was concealed behind a curtain in the council chambers in advance of the next meeting, with 2 buckets of goat dung as his ammunition. And every time the councillor in question looked like he was about to say something and opened his mouth slightly, then the little boy would ping goat dung straight into the mouth of the councillor before he'd had the chance to even realize what was happening. So fast was the boy that the councillor couldn't understand where this strange taste in his mouth was coming from every time he even thought to say something in the meeting. And as time went on, then this guy became less and less inclined to say anything in the meeting. And all the affairs in the kingdom went much more smoothly. All the council meetings were very quick and efficient, and there was no more interruptions from this councillor in general. And by the end of the meeting, the guy looked particularly green in the face. And the king eventually felt sorry for this councillor, and afraid that he would get dysentery or something, he said, "You can go and wash your mouth out now, and in the future, don't interrupt the meetings anymore, or you'll get 2 bucketfuls of goat dung in your mouth for sure." And as a result of one simple skill, which the little boy had mastered to the full extent, he managed to elevate himself from a place of destitution into a place of respect in the royal palace as a result of just one skill which he managed to get right. So the moral of the story is, no matter how humble the skill which you might be proud of, which you might be able to do, if you cultivate that skill to its full extent, you too might go on to fame and fortune, and certainly a degree of acceptance in society, standing on your own 2 feet as a result of the skill that you have. For today, I would like to leave you with the encouragement to do more of the meditation you have learned today, if you found it was useful to you. And the best way forward with the meditation is to try to find about 20 minutes a day to do something similar to the meditation you did today in your home life. Some people like to meditate early in the morning when the house is quiet or when their mind is not yet full of things to do. Or if you're the sort of person who has problems to sleep, then maybe at the end of the day would be a suitable time for you to sit and meditate. But if you can manage 20 minutes each day of meditation, then generally it will accumulate and the meditation will see some sort of progress as time goes on. Sometimes for children I recommend less than that, but I think for adults generally 20 minutes upwards is a good sort of length to start with. And if you feel inclined to meditate more than that, then you can up the time as time goes on. If you're not so familiar with the meditation technique, you might find something called the Mind Gem app useful, which is lots of audio tracks leading meditation, which you can follow along with as you're meditating. That will help to make the meditation a little bit more interesting for you as you pick up different aspects of meditation as time goes along. And it has a timer built into it as well, where you can sit in silence at the end of the instruction for a length of time which you set for yourself as well. So I'd recommend that you download that if you find that useful. Classes here generally take place in person on Tuesdays, as you found out today, and also on Thursdays. The Thursdays are a little bit longer meditation, usually 45 minutes, and the talks sometimes go into more detail on Buddhism too. Apart from that, we have also online meditation on Saturdays between 7 and 8 for those who find it easier to meditate from the comfort of their home. And generally that's 20 minutes, half an hour meditation and some sort of wisdom talk along with that as well. Also we have especially once a month a full moon meditation, which tends to follow the phases of the moon, so it's not always on the same day of the week, but the next one will be coming up on Friday the 18th of March, and the theme for that will be building spiritual resilience. For the young men amongst you who are looking for a longer retreat or more authentic Buddhist lifestyle, you might want to try out being a monk for a month or a pinch 2 weeks. Generally, we organize these meditation as a monk retreats in Belgium, which is one of our bigger centers in Europe, but it has the opportunity for camping, where you can be in your little tent as a monk and meditate in the tent and get the authentic experience, these for 2 weeks. Find out if that is something which is right for you or not. As for a slightly less intense retreat coming up between the 18th and the 20th of March, we are holding a weekend retreat here, so Friday night, Saturday, and then Sunday finishing up in the afternoon, where you can sleep over, have 4 sessions of meditation per day, and keep what's known as 8 precepts. 8 precepts means 1 less meal a day normally, and a little bit less sort of a simplified lifestyle, let's say, less things to interrupt your continuity of mind as you're meditating. So that is available from the website themeditationsari.com if you're interested to look into the details of that. But for today, I will bring the session to a close, but there is an opportunity for any questions, comments, or feedback if that is something you'd like to do at this time.
If there are no questions, you're very welcome as looking at this to the you're very welcome to ask any questions that you have later on. And for the moment, could we, ladies and gentlemen, together pay respect to our teaching monk, our guide, bow.
So may all of you be blessed with craftsmanship in whatever skill you turn your hand to in a good and a beneficial way in order to make a real change for best in the world.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.